He didn't hear the footsteps right away, just the slow crunch of gravel beneath leather soles, each step deliberate, heavy, like someone claiming space that wasn't theirs to begin with. Malik Carter looked up from his rake, sweat beading on his forehead beneath the early spring sun. His lawn was immaculate. Grass trimmed. Borders clean. The Japanese maple by his walkway stood like a crown. But the man in the crisp polo shirt and Oakley sunglasses didn't seem to care. "Excuse me, sir," the man said, with the kind of politeness that masked something meaner underneath. "Are you the property owner here?" Malik raised a brow. "I am." There was a beat. Not long. Just enough to signal doubt. Enough to say, "Really?" The man didn't introduce himself. He didn't have to. That shiny gold HOA badge on his lanyard, too official for a volunteer, too smug for a civil servant, told Malik everything he needed to know. HOA Enforcement Officer Craig Delaney. The gatekeeper of suburban peace. The self-appointed sheriff of neat hedges and conformity. A man who policed shrubbery like it owed him rent. He didn't come with kindness. He came with power. And he had no idea what he was walking into. Wellington Pines wasn't the kind of place where people raised their voices. It was a curated, cul-de-sac fantasy, retired military on one end, new tech money on the other. White fences, golden retrievers, driveway basketball hoops. A brochure town. Perfect, pristine, and quietly oppressive. Malik had moved here 2 years ago. Former military intelligence. Now a cybersecurity consultant working remotely. He bought the end lot, spacious, quiet, shaded. Most people didn't know his name. They waved. Or didn't. He wasn't new to microaggressions, but here, they came with smiles and pastries. Here, they voted for HOA board members like it was Congress. Here, they used bylaws like bullets. "I'm here about your lawn," Delaney said, flipping open a clipboard like a cop writing a ticket. Malik leaned on his rake. "What about it?" "The blade length," Delaney said, crouching down with exaggerated precision. "Some areas are over 2.5 inches. HOA guidelines are clear. Must be under 2. Section 4.3.2. "You measured my grass?" "Eyeballed it," Delaney grinned. "Been doing this a long time." "You got a warrant for my lawn?" Delaney chuckled. "No need. You agreed to this when you signed your property documents. You do have the original HOA agreement, right?" Malik didn't flinch. He had. In triplicate. Annotated. "I'll trim it lower this weekend," Malik said. "Problem solved." "I'm afraid that won't be enough," Delaney replied. "This is your second warning. Third's a fine. After that we escalate." "To what?" "Lien on the property," Delaney said too quickly. "Just the rules, Mr. Carter, is it?" Something twisted in Malik's gut. Not from fear. From recognition. He'd seen this posture before, in war zones, in interrogation rooms. It was the stance of men who thought a uniform gave them license to bully. Only this wasn't Fallujah. This was his front yard. Malik's fingers tightened around the rake. He thought about his father, who'd never owned a home. About the red lines drawn on maps decades before he was born. About neighbors who looked at him sideways when his Tesla pulled into the driveway. He thought about how quickly the American dream could turn into a quietly enforced nightmare. And how men like Delaney were always posted at the threshold, waiting to remind you, this ain't really yours. A car slowed. Then another. Neighbors peeked through blinds. Malik's confrontation had turned into performance art, unspoken rules unraveling under the afternoon sun. Delaney smiled wider. "It's nothing personal, Mr. Carter. I enforce standards. Doesn't matter who you are." But that was the lie, wasn't it? It always mattered. Malik wiped his hands on his cargo shorts and turned toward the house. "Where you going?" Delaney asked. "To get something," Malik said. His voice was steady. Controlled. Not angry. Not yet. "Sir, I'm not done speaking with you." But Malik was already inside. And what he was about to bring out would end this conversation, and start something much, much bigger. The moment the door closed behind him, the silence of Malik's foyer felt almost sacred. Outside, the performance continued. He could still hear the hum of his neighbor's idling SUV, the low murmur of a phone call placed too quickly, the quiet betrayal of people who watched but never spoke. He moved with purpose. Past the minimalist console table. Past the photographs of his parents in front of their old apartment building on the south side. Past the unopened housewarming gift still tucked into a corner, given by the only neighbor who had ever truly welcomed him. He opened the hall closet and reached for the leather-bound document case that hadn't left its shelf in over a year. The case was heavy but familiar. Inside was everything he needed. Not just a deed. A revelation. When Malik bought the property, he hadn't just bought a house. He'd bought a chunk of land so oddly shaped and underpriced that his realtor had seemed confused. "What's the catch?" Malik had asked. "There's a sliver of common property attached," the agent replied. "Technically, a portion of HOA land. Not sure why the seller included it. Probably just wanted it gone." Malik had smiled. He read every line, every clause, every footnote, and what he discovered was extraordinary. The HOA's administrative office, Plot 14, had quietly reverted back to private ownership when the neighborhood's original developer went bankrupt. In the shuffle, the office was sold off in a foreclosure auction. Malik bought it along with Plot 15, his current home. No one had noticed. Until now. When Malik stepped back outside, the neighborhood felt tighter somehow. Stifled. The afternoon sun bore down harder, though the clouds had thickened. Delaney was standing near the edge of the lawn, typing something into his phone. Malik held the leather case casually in one hand. He walked slowly, calmly. The rake still leaned against the porch, forgotten. Delaney didn't look up until Malik was 3 feet away. "You ready to comply?" he asked. Malik stopped, tilting his head. "I'd like to show you something." Delaney squinted at the folder. "If this is more protest, save it. My job's not to argue. It's to enforce." Malik opened the folder. 1 page. 2 signatures. 1 stamped in red ink. Deed to Plot 15, residential. Deed to Plot 14, administrative office. Malik tapped the second line gently. "You recognize this address?" Delaney's smirk twitched. He looked closer. Then his face went pale. "Own the HOA office?" he said, voice cracking slightly. "I do." "That's not possible. It's public record." "You can't, no one owns that. That's community property." Malik smiled, not with arrogance but precision. It was community property. Then the builder defaulted. The HOA never refiled the transfer. No one caught it. Until I did. Delaney opened his mouth, then closed it again. His eyes darted around. Calculating. Scrambling. "You're saying you own the building I work out of?" "Yes." "And this voids the violation?" "No," Malik said softly. "It voids your authority on this property." Delaney looked like a man watching his entire ecosystem shift. He stepped back. Just half a foot. But Malik noticed. "It's still a violation," he said, weaker now. "Doesn't matter who owns what. You agreed to HOA rules when you moved in." Malik pulled another document from the case. An email chain from the city planning department. A notice confirming the HOA's charter had expired and been operating on lapsed renewal for over a year. Another oversight. Delaney's eyes scanned the page. He was sweating now. "You're bluffing," he muttered. Malik didn't answer. He didn't have to. Across the street, a neighbor came out holding a coffee mug and leaned on his car. Another opened a window. The performance was shifting. This wasn't just a violation anymore. It was a confrontation between illusion and reality. Delaney glanced around. He didn't like the attention. The power was slipping. "You think this makes you better than everyone?" he snapped suddenly. "You think you're untouchable?" Malik met his gaze. Grounded. "No," he said. "But I know what I own. And I know I've done nothing wrong." Delaney took a long breath. Then, in a quiet act of cowardice, he folded the clipboard against his chest and turned away. No apology. No retreat. Just shame, hot and rising. As Delaney walked back to his HOA-issued SUV, Malik stood still, the folder at his side like a badge of another kind. He didn't smile. He didn't gloat. But he did feel something settle. A weight lifting, not from winning, but from finally being seen. This wasn't just about lawns. It never was. Malik stood on his porch long after Delaney drove away. The engine's hum faded into the sound of birds returning to their afternoon rhythm. Somewhere in the distance, a child laughed, unaware that the neighborhood had just shifted on its axis. But Malik knew. The quiet was louder now. The moment was over, but the echo was just beginning. That night, Malik sat in his home office, blinds drawn, screens glowing. He wasn't just researching. He was dissecting. His fingers flew over the keyboard, combing through public records, HOA filings, meeting transcripts, and scanned PDFs from city archives. The Bellwood Reserve HOA had presented itself as a model of suburban order, but what he found beneath the polished bylaws and neatly formatted letters was a rot that ran deep. He discovered that for the last 3 years, no one had been properly elected to the HOA board. The last election was held via an informal email poll. No minutes, no signatures, no oversight. He found budget documents that didn't balance, showing funds allocated for beautification that ended up paid to companies owned by board member spouses. He found fines levied disproportionately against Black and Latino homeowners, dozens of them over the past 5 years. Most of those homeowners didn't fight back. Many sold. Malik wasn't just angry. He was activated. He remembered his grandfather's words, back when Malik was still a teenager growing up in a city where wrong place, wrong time could get you killed or worse. They'll always underestimate you, Malik. That's your weapon. Let them. He hadn't fully understood those words until now. All these years, Malik had followed the rules. Dressed the part. Mowed his lawn on time. Smiled just enough to be non-threatening. He had succeeded by staying silent in the face of subtle violence. But now he realized, conformity had bought him no protection, only delayed disrespect. At 9:12 p.m., Malik's phone rang. A known number. Local area code. He hesitated, then answered. Mr. Carter? The voice was clipped. Carefully rehearsed. This is Marjorie Linklater, president of the Bellwood Reserve HOA. He leaned back. Evening. I understand there was an incident today involving one of our field officers. That's one word for it. I'd like to clarify that Officer Delaney was acting outside the scope of approved procedure. His behavior does not reflect our organization's values. Funny. That's not what your track record says. There was a pause on the line. Excuse me? Malik's voice was quiet, but pointed. I've seen your fine records. I've seen who gets written up. Who doesn't? Who gets warnings? Who gets visits? It's a pattern. Mr. Carter, if this is some kind of threat. It's not. It's a courtesy. I'm giving you a chance to clean your house before I do it for you. The next morning, Malik drafted an open letter to the residents of Bellwood Reserve. It was factual. Thorough. He didn't point fingers. He presented numbers. Documents. He didn't speak in anger. He spoke with clarity. He included a scanned copy of the expired HOA charter, a summary of the illegal election process, a spreadsheet showing demographic trends in fines issued over 5 years. He titled it, Bellwood Reserve, a community or a control mechanism? Then he attached it to an anonymous email blast, blind copying every homeowner on record. Within hours, the neighborhood buzzed. Some residents were furious, not at Malik, but at the realization that they'd been ruled by a paper-thin regime with a racialized fist. Others tried to dismiss it. He's stirring the pot. Trying to cause division. But Malik had planted something that couldn't be unplanted. A question. The doorbell rang late that afternoon. Malik opened it to find Marjorie herself, perfectly pressed slacks, too much perfume, smile just a shade too forced. She held a folder. I came to apologize personally, she said. About the behavior. About everything. Malik didn't step aside. He didn't invite her in. An apology without accountability is just PR, he said. Her smile flickered. We'd like to make you a formal offer to join the board, she said. Malik studied her. Because you want change, or because now I can force it? She looked away. Didn't answer. That's what I thought. That night, Malik walked his lawn barefoot. The grass brushed his soles like silk. Beneath it was soil. Beneath the soil was history. And beneath that, blood. So many black men had owned land in name but not in power. They were taxed out. Zoned out. Priced out. Find out. Malik wasn't going anywhere. This was his home. Now everyone knew it. The sun rose different the next morning. Not brighter. Not warmer. Just heavier. As if the air in Bellwood Reserve had thickened with something people didn't have words for yet. But they felt it. In glances. In silences. In inboxes. Because overnight, Malik Carter's letter had done something no HOA meeting, no newsletter, no neighborhood potluck ever had. It made people look at their homes and their rules differently. By 8 a.m., the sidewalks buzzed with low murmurs. Did you read it? I always thought something was off. My cousin got fined for a doormat once. Cars idled longer in driveways. Residents paused during morning walks, gathering in cautious little clusters. Everyone seemed to be talking. No one dared talk too loud. But all eyes, at some point, landed on one house. Malik's. The end lot with the maple tree and drought-tolerant grass. The house that refused to shrink itself anymore. At 9:17 a.m., the HOA board called an emergency meeting. Not a virtual one. In person. At the office on Plot 14. The office that Malik now legally owned. They didn't ask his permission. They didn't knock. They just assumed. Malik watched from his Ring camera as 3 board members, Marjorie Linklater, Richard Holcomb, and a third man he didn't recognize, unlocked the door to the HOA office and let themselves in. He chuckled. They really didn't get it yet. He waited 15 minutes. Then he walked down the block, calm as a preacher on a Sunday stroll, leather document folder under his arm. A few neighbors watched from porches. Some waved nervously. He didn't wave back. He was focused. He opened the office door and stepped inside like it was his living room. Because it was. They looked up. Richard, a red-faced man in an ill-fitting blazer, stood. Excuse me, this is a private meeting. Malik dropped the folder on the table. Not without my permission, it's not. Richard scoffed. You don't run this neighborhood, Mr. Carter. Marjorie cleared her throat, quietly desperate. Let's not escalate. But Malik's calm was volcanic. Controlled. Unstoppable. I own this office, he said evenly. I can evict you right now. Silence. But I won't. Not yet. Because I want to see what happens when you finally have to answer to the people you've been policing. By noon, screenshots of Malik's documents were circulating in a neighborhood WhatsApp group that had previously only shared garage sale flyers and lost pet alerts. Now it was on fire. One resident shared her violation letter for unapproved flower colors. Another posted a photo of her biracial fiancé being questioned by security for loitering. An older Latino man wrote, "They made me repaint my front door twice. I didn't fight it. I didn't want trouble." The pattern was undeniable now. The dam had cracked. And Malik didn't have to say another word. The neighborhood was speaking for him. That evening, the HOA board issued a public statement on their website. We are aware of recent concerns regarding policy enforcement and board transparency. We take these matters seriously and are reviewing all protocols. Malik laughed aloud when he read it. Reviewing. As if they hadn't built the house crooked from the foundation. As if their sins were clerical, not cultural. He didn't need their acknowledgement. He had the truth. And the truth didn't need approval. Just after sundown, there was a knock at Malik's door. Not loud. Not entitled. Gentle. He opened it to find Thomas, the older white man who lived 4 houses down. Veteran. Quiet. Always wore the same Vietnam cap. I read your letter, Thomas said, hands in his jacket pockets. Malik nodded. Appreciate that. You were right. I didn't see it. I didn't want to. But I see it now. A long pause passed between them. Thomas cleared his throat. I want to help. Malik looked at him. Not with suspicion, but with curiosity. Help how? Thomas swallowed. They trust me. The board. The older residents. Maybe I can get them to listen. Malik's expression softened. Then let's talk. As they sat on Malik's porch that night, Thomas confessed things he'd buried for years. How the HOA had changed. How his black neighbor 2 doors down sold her house after 3 consecutive fines for porch clutter that looked suspiciously like wind chimes and a Buddha statue. How he hadn't said anything. Because it wasn't his fight. Until now. Malik listened. Then he said something Thomas never forgot. Silence isn't neutral. It's fuel. Every time we stay quiet, they grow stronger. That night, Malik drafted another letter. This one wasn't anonymous. He signed it in bold letters. Attached a proposal for new board elections. Called for diversity, transparency, accountability. And beneath his signature, he included one simple line. We can either fix this together, or keep pretending everything's fine. He hit send. And the cul-de-sac, quiet, white-picketed, manicured to within an inch of its soul, held its breath. Wellington Pines had always been a community where the lawns said more than the people did. They whispered messages. We belong here. We follow the rules. We know who's watching. Grass was clipped like it had something to prove. Flower beds became silent battlegrounds for taste and superiority. The deeper green your lawn, the deeper your compliance. That's how the HOA liked it. That's how many residents survived it. And that's why Malik's grass, short, neat, native, still somehow felt like a threat. Because he wasn't trying to impress anyone. He was just trying to live. The morning after the HOA's sterile statement, Malik received an unexpected visitor. Angela Sloan. She used to live 2 doors down. Black woman, mid-30s, graphic designer. Quiet. Respectful. Gone almost a year now. He opened the door, surprised. Angela? The doorbell rang late that afternoon. Malik opened it to find Marjorie herself, perfectly pressed slacks, too much perfume, smile just a shade too forced. She held a folder. I came to apologize personally, she said. About the behavior. About everything. Malik didn't step aside. He didn't invite her in. An apology without accountability is just PR, he said. Her smile flickered. We'd like to make you a formal offer to join the board, she said. Malik studied her. Because you want change, or because now I can force it? She looked away. Didn't answer. That's what I thought. That night, Malik walked his lawn barefoot. The grass brushed his soles like silk. Beneath it was soil. Beneath the soil was history. And beneath that, blood. So many black men had owned land in name but not in power. They were taxed out. Zoned out. Priced out. Fined out. Malik wasn't going anywhere. This was his home. Now everyone knew it. The sun rose different the next morning. Not brighter. Not warmer. Just heavier. As if the air in Bellwood Reserve had thickened with something people didn't have words for yet. But they felt it. In glances. In silences. In inboxes. Because overnight, Malik Carter's letter had done something no HOA meeting, no newsletter, no neighborhood potluck ever had. It made people look at their homes and their rules differently. By 8 a.m., the sidewalks buzzed with low murmurs. Did you read it? I always thought something was off. My cousin got fined for a doormat once. Cars idled longer in driveways. Residents paused during morning walks, gathering in cautious little clusters. Everyone seemed to be talking. No one dared talk too loud. But all eyes, at some point, landed on one house. Malik's. The end lot with the maple tree and drought-tolerant grass. The house that refused to shrink itself anymore. At 9:17 a.m., the HOA board called an emergency meeting. Not a virtual one. In person. At the office on Plot 14. The office that Malik now legally owned. They didn't ask his permission. They didn't knock. They just assumed. Fin. Malik watched from his Ring camera as 3 board members, Marjorie Linklater, Richard Holcomb, and a third man he didn't recognize, unlocked the door to the HOA office and let themselves in. He chuckled. They really didn't get it yet. He waited 15 minutes. Then he walked down the block, calm as a preacher on a Sunday stroll, leather document folder under his arm. A few neighbors watched from porches. Some waved nervously. He didn't wave back. He was focused. He opened the office door and stepped inside like it was his living room. Because it was. They looked up. Richard, a red-faced man in an ill-fitting blazer, stood. "Excuse me, this is a private meeting." Malik dropped the folder on the table. "Not without my permission, it's not." Richard scoffed. "You don't run this neighborhood, Mr. Carter." Marjorie cleared her throat, quietly desperate. "Let's not escalate." But Malik's calm was volcanic. Controlled. Unstoppable. "I own this office," he said evenly. "I can evict you right now." Silence. "But I won't. Not yet. Because I want to see what happens when you finally have to answer to the people you've been policing." By noon, screenshots of Malik's documents were circulating in a neighborhood WhatsApp group that had previously only shared garage sale flyers and lost pet alerts. Now it was on fire. One resident shared her violation letter for unapproved flower colors. Another posted a photo of her biracial fiancé being questioned by security for loitering. An older Latino man wrote, "They made me repaint my front door twice. I didn't fight it. I didn't want trouble." The pattern was undeniable now. The dam had cracked. And Malik didn't have to say another word. The neighborhood was speaking for him. That evening, the HOA board issued a public statement on their website. "We are aware of recent concerns regarding policy enforcement and board transparency. We take these matters seriously and are reviewing all protocols." Malik laughed aloud when he read it. Reviewing. As if they hadn't built the house crooked from the foundation. As if their sins were clerical, not cultural. He didn't need their acknowledgement. He had the truth. And the truth didn't need approval. Just after sundown, there was a knock at Malik's door. Not loud. Not entitled. Gentle. He opened it to find Thomas, the older white man who lived 4 houses down. Veteran. Quiet. Always wore the same Vietnam cap. "I read your letter," Thomas said, hands in his jacket pockets. Malik nodded. "Appreciate that. You were right. I didn't see it. I didn't want to. But I see it now." A long pause passed between them. Thomas cleared his throat. "I want to help." Malik looked at him. Not with suspicion, but with curiosity. "Help how?" Thomas swallowed. "They trust me. The board. The older residents. Maybe I can get them to listen." Malik's expression softened. "Then let's talk." As they sat on Malik's porch that night, Thomas confessed things he'd buried for years. How the HOA had changed. How his black neighbor 2 doors down sold her house after 3 consecutive fines for porch clutter that looked suspiciously like wind chimes and a Buddha statue. How he hadn't said anything. Because it wasn't his fight. Until now. Malik listened. Then he said something Thomas never forgot. "Silence isn't neutral. It's fuel. Every time we stay quiet, they grow stronger." That night, Malik drafted another letter. This one wasn't anonymous. He signed it in bold letters. Attached a proposal for new board elections. Called for diversity, transparency, accountability. And beneath his signature, he included one simple line. "We can either fix this together, or keep pretending everything's fine." He hit send. And the cul-de-sac, quiet, white-picketed, manicured to within an inch of its soul, held its breath. Wellington Pines had always been a community where the lawns said more than the people did. They whispered messages. "We belong here. We follow the rules. We know who's watching." Grass was clipped like it had something to prove. Flower beds became silent battlegrounds for taste and superiority. The deeper green your lawn, the deeper your compliance. That's how the HOA liked it. That's how many residents survived it. And that's why Malik's grass, short, neat, native, still somehow felt like a threat. Because he wasn't trying to impress anyone. He was just trying to live. The morning after the HOA's sterile statement, Malik received an unexpected visitor. Angela Sloan. She used to live 2 doors down. Black woman, mid-30s, graphic designer. Quiet. Respectful. Gone almost a year now. He opened the door, surprised. "Angela?" "Carter, 92. Sloan, 88. Holcomb, 53. Linklater, 46. The board had been flipped. Not by yelling. Not by lawsuits. By people who finally saw their silence as complicity and chose differently. Later that evening, Malik addressed the neighborhood. No podium. Just the steps of his porch, the same place where the story had begun. I didn't run for this because I wanted power, he said. I ran because I was tired of being policed while mowing my lawn. Tired of watching neighbors walk on eggshells in a place they're paying to live. He looked around. Not just at the new supporters, but at the skeptics. The ones still unsure. Still clinging to the idea that order equals peace. It doesn't matter how pretty a place looks if the people inside it feel small, he said. We're going to build something better. Messy maybe, but fair. Then he held up a copy of the HOA charter with 2 fingers. Let's rewrite this. Together. The lawns didn't all change overnight. There were still whispers. Still watchdogs. Still eyes that narrowed as Malik walked his street. But the power had shifted. The illusion had shattered. And somewhere, beneath all that ornamental turf, something real was beginning to grow. The ballots had been counted. The seats won. The bylaws in review. By every visible metric, Malik Carter had turned the tide. But anyone who's ever lived in a place like Bellwood Reserve knows, the real violations are never on paper. They're passed in glances. Muted tones. In the things neighbors no longer say, or the way they say your name with an extra weight of disapproval. Victory might change policy, but culture resists like roots grown into stone. And Malik was beginning to feel the cracks beneath his feet. It started small. The usual wave from Linda next door became a tight nod. Carl, the mailman, suddenly had his earbuds in whenever he dropped off Malik's parcels. One afternoon, Malik pulled into his driveway and noticed the trash bins had been pushed from the curb, halfway onto his lawn. Not dumped. Not dramatic. Just enough to send a message, you're being watched. And then there was the sprinkler note. Slipped through his front door mail slot. No name. Water use guidelines apply to everyone. Would be unfortunate if you forgot who actually enforces things around here. Malik read it twice, then once more. Not because it shocked him, but because it confirmed what he already knew. The power structure might have bent, but it hadn't broken. Angela came by more often now, partly for board meetings, partly just to talk. They'd fallen into an unspoken rhythm of camaraderie. Not quite friendship. Something stronger. More enduring. They sat on the porch one afternoon, sipping hibiscus tea, as the sun glinted off windshields lined up down the street. You ever get the feeling, Angela said, that winning just paints a bigger target on your back? Malik smiled faintly. Every day. She shook her head. These people would rather repaint their whole damn house than admit someone like you or me belongs on the board. Malik gestured toward his quiet, perfect lawn. Belonging's not in the grass. It's in the fight. Angela nodded. And they hate that we know how to fight. That Sunday, during the community park cleanup, Malik showed up early with gloves and bags. Most of the board did too. Even Richard Holcomb, begrudging in defeat, wore a volunteer badge. The others didn't say much. They didn't need to. When Malik offered someone a pair of spare gloves, they responded with a flat, I brought my own. When he tried to organize the cleanup zones, Marjorie cut him off with a sugary, I think the old plan works just fine, dear. It was subtle. Dismissive. Weaponized politeness. He felt like a guest at his own event. But he smiled anyway. Not because he wanted to, but because he knew it unnerved them more than any fight. After the cleanup, Malik walked through the park alone. The place looked beautiful. Trimmed hedges, clean benches, mulch laid under the oaks. But he noticed something odd. The small memorial plaque at the far end, dedicated to Elijah Brown, a black veteran who died in Vietnam and lived in Bellwood Pines before it became Reserve, was gone. Not broken. Removed. He went home. Checked the board meeting archives. In a quiet line under Park Upkeep, there it was. Recommendation to remove non-standard memorials from community space to maintain visual cohesion. Voted unanimously. A month before Malik's election. He hadn't seen it. He hadn't known. But now he did. That night, Malik called Thomas. Did you know about the plaque? Thomas was quiet for a long time. Then, I didn't want to believe it was about race. I thought, maybe it was clutter. Clutter, Malik repeated flatly. I was wrong. Malik exhaled, his voice low. We're putting it back. I'll help. You'll need to do more than help, Malik said. You'll need to speak. The next weekend, Malik held a new meeting, not in the clubhouse, not in the boardroom. In the park, under the tree where the plaque once stood. He didn't send invites. He just stood there at noon, holding a new bronze plaque, freshly etched. And he waited. 5 people showed up. Then 12. Then 30. Angela came. So did Thomas. And, surprisingly, Denise. Malik didn't make a speech. He simply held the plaque up and read it aloud. In memory of Elijah Brown, father, neighbor, veteran. You helped build this place before they gave it a name. We remember you. We see you. You belong here. And then he hammered it into the earth with his own hands. No permission. No vote. Just truth, grounded like roots under manicured turf. Later that day, Malik found another note on his porch. Anonymous. The rules are there for a reason. If everyone did whatever they wanted, this wouldn't be a community anymore. He smiled, tucked it in a folder, and went inside. Because now he understood. They never find you for the grass. They find you for the dignity. For the pride. For not asking to exist. Bellwood Reserve had always prided itself on being a quiet neighborhood. No barking dogs after 9 p.m. No music above 60 decibels. No leaf blowers on Sundays. No parties without board notification. No shouting. No profanity. No chaos. But Malik Carter was beginning to understand that the quiet they loved so much wasn't just about noise. It was about containment. Control disguised as civility. A culture where what wasn't said carried more weight than what was. Where silence was both weapon and sanctuary, depending on who you were. Her name was Helen Drake. 82. Lived alone. White hair like brittle snow, always tucked beneath a sun visor. No one had ever seen her without gardening gloves. She didn't speak much, but when she did, it was usually to say something like, "The magnolias are blooming early," or, "That's not the way the last owner trimmed that hedge." Malik had seen her watching him from behind her curtains. Not just today. Almost every day. A quiet presence. Observing. Never waving. Never nodding. That morning, as Malik trimmed the Japanese maple, he glanced up, and there she was. Just the faintest outline behind the linen. She didn't move. She didn't hide. She just stared. He raised his hand in a soft wave. She didn't wave back. She let the curtain fall. Later that day, Malik attended a board workshop to revise the HOA bylaws. Angela had suggested adding language about cultural tolerance, protection from retaliatory citations, and creating a transparent complaint appeal system. The suggestions were reasonable, necessary, but the board, especially the older members, grew quiet. Too quiet. "Don't you think this is overcomplicating things?" one asked. "We've never had problems before," said another. "We don't want to make people uncomfortable," murmured Marjorie. That word, uncomfortable, carried 1,000 meanings and none of them true. Malik leaned forward. "You mean you've never felt uncomfortable?" They didn't respond. Angela's jaw tightened. "This isn't discomfort. This is accountability." Still, no one argued. No one shouted. No one said, no. They just nodded vaguely, adjusted their clipboards, and made no promises. The silence was deafening. That evening, just after dusk, Malik's doorbell rang. It was Denise Marsh, teal door Denise, still in her work blazer, face drawn. "Got a second?" He let her in. "I got a note," she said. "Like you did." She handed it to him. No envelope. No name. "You've made your point. Maybe now you stop pushing it." "Think it was one of them?" she asked. Malik shook his head. "Doesn't matter. Could be someone on the board. Could be someone who smiles at you every morning." She laughed bitterly. "That narrows it down to the entire street." They sat in silence for a while. Then she said something he wouldn't forget. "They don't need pitchforks when they have politeness. They'll kill your soul with courtesy." That week, the board meetings got quieter. The neighbors, colder. The support, more cautious. People who had once cheered him at the park now avoided eye contact. Not because they'd changed their minds. Because the pushback was getting real. Because the weight of being aligned with Malik Carter came with a cost. Angela called it passive exile. Malik just called it familiar. One night, Thomas came to speak at the clubhouse. He wore his veteran's hat again. This time with a Carter plus Sloan pin still on it. He stood before a half-full room of sleepy-eyed, lawn-obsessed residents and said, "I fought overseas. Saw men die to protect freedoms we don't even use here." He paused, looked at Malik, then continued, "I sat quiet when my neighbor was fined for a welcome mat. Told myself it wasn't my business. But silence, my silence, was permission." He looked back at the board. "I won't be quiet anymore." No one applauded. But no one interrupted. And that was its own kind of applause. The next morning, Malik received a letter in his mailbox. Handwritten. Cursive. Elegant. No return address, but he knew the handwriting. "Helen. Mr. Carter. You waved at me yesterday. No one has waved at me in years. I didn't wave back. I was raised not to. I'm not proud of that. I don't agree with everything you say. But I think you're right about one thing. This neighborhood doesn't listen. It hasn't for a long time. So I'm writing you instead. Because maybe this is how I start." Malik folded the note carefully and placed it in the same drawer as the HOA violation notices. Different weapons. Same war. Some people fight with rules. Some with fences. Some, like Helen, with silence they finally break. And some, like Malik, with nothing more than truth, carried day after day, like a torch in a windstorm. The grass had grown. Not unruly. Not wild. Just a little fuller. A little freer. It waved in the wind now instead of lying flat and disciplined like it had something to prove. Malik stood barefoot on it one morning, mug in hand, and thought about the absurdity of it all. This wasn't just a lawn. It had never been just a lawn. It was a battlefield. A mirror. A mask. The code. A proxy war for belonging. And everyone had played their part. Before the plaque, before the notes, before the board votes and bylaws, there had been something simpler. The sound of a lawnmower. His own. 6 a.m. on Saturdays. Every Saturday. Because back then, Malik had believed that if you keep everything perfect, they'll leave you alone. He trimmed the edges like borders between nations. He swept the clippings like evidence. He watered carefully, precisely, not to overdo it, but just enough to say, "I belong here. See? I play by the rules too." And still they came. Malik once heard a scholar say, "There are wars that happen with guns, and wars that happen with expectations." Bellwood Reserve was waging the latter. Not in courtrooms. Not in protests. But in shrubs and fences and patio furniture guidelines. Because if you can control the external, maybe you can shrink what's internal. That's what the HOA had been doing all along. They didn't just find people. They trained them. To hesitate. To self-correct. To ask permission from ghosts in khaki polos. That morning, Malik walked the entire cul-de-sac barefoot. No earbuds. No hoodie. No sunglasses. Just himself. Exposed. Present. Old Thomas waved from his porch. Denise gave a thumbs up from behind her teal door. A new couple, Asian, maybe Vietnamese, smiled and nodded as they painted a mural on their garage door. It was abstract. Right? Beautiful. But not everyone greeted him. A few turned and re-entered their homes as he approached. A golden retriever barked at him from a porch where it had never barked before. He wasn't surprised. Progress always draws shadows. Angela sat on her porch when he arrived, already 2 coffees deep. She handed him one without a word. They sat. The silence wasn't heavy now. It was sacred. 3 more violations this week, she said finally. All against people of color. Same person filing the complaints? Angela nodded. Anonymous, but the phrasing matches. Anyone doing anything about it? Thomas is tracking it. And me. But the others, she shrugged. They like their peace. Malik sipped. Peace for who? Angela smirked. Exactly. Then, quieter, you think we're winning? Malik looked at the sunrise cresting over the manicured roofs. I think we're not losing. That's a start. That afternoon, Malik wrote a letter. Not to the board. Not to the neighborhood. To himself. Dear Malik, remember this. They never hated your lawn. They feared your certainty. They saw a man who didn't flinch, who didn't shrink. And that's not what they were taught to expect. But here's the truth. Belonging isn't about being allowed in. It's about refusing to be pushed out. Keep standing. Keep walking barefoot. Keep waving even when they don't wave back. You are the crack in the silence. The seed in the soil. The answer they didn't prepare for. Don't forget that. He folded the letter and tucked it into the folder with every violation he had ever received. Then he added one last note on top. You tried to police my presence. I made it permanent. That night, Malik called his niece, Zoe. She was 17. But unapologetically herself. She once got suspended for correcting a teacher's history lesson. He told her about the deed. About the board. About the plaque. You really own the office they work out of? She laughed. Sure do. That's the most gangster thing I've ever heard. Language, he said. I said gangster, Uncle Malik. Not vulgar. He smiled. Fair. Zoe paused. I wish Grandpa was still around. He'd love this. Malik's throat caught. Yeah, he said softly. He would. She added, he'd probably mow your lawn just to piss off the HOA. They both laughed. Long reel. After the call, Malik stepped onto the lawn one last time. The moon hung low. His feet sank slightly into the cool earth. He thought about all the names buried beneath this country's lawns, black names, immigrant names, indigenous names, erased to make room for neatness. But not here. Not now. In this yard, the grass was growing wild enough to whisper. The soil hummed. And Malik stood still. Not victorious. Not finished. Just rooted. It came in an envelope. But thin. No stamp. No return address. Tucked between the weekly circulars and a coupon for gutter cleaning, it almost looked harmless. Malik sat at his kitchen table and opened it slowly, as if the paper might bite. Inside, one sheet. Centered. Final notice of HOA violation. Subject. Unauthorized memorial installation, Elijah Brown Park. Action required. Removal within 14 days to avoid penalty. We must preserve visual cohesion for the benefit of the community. That sentence again. Preserve. Visual. Cohesion. Malik set the letter down. Then he laughed. Not a sharp laugh. Not cruel. Just tired. Because this wasn't about plaques. Or park benches. Or the man who had lived and died before the neighborhood even had a name. It was about a system that believed its rules mattered more than memory. They called it a special review session. Malik called it what it was, an attempt to reassert control. He didn't go alone. Angela was beside him, dressed in a bright crimson dress that made her impossible to ignore. Thomas came too, carrying a binder of signatures, dates, and testimony. Denise followed, armed with screenshots of community messages, most of them anonymous, most of them ugly. The community center was packed. Not with the usual suspects. With people who had been watching. Waiting. Waking up. Marjorie opened the meeting like always, with her practiced smile and a string of words about civility and shared responsibility. Then she brought up the violation. She called it unapproved ornamentation. She said it was divisive. She said, this is a shared space. Not a place for political statements. And that's when Malik stood up. Not angry. Just ready. I didn't place a political statement, he said. I restored a person. The pause. He held up a photo of Elijah Brown. Uniformed. Smiling. Alive. This man lived here before you even knew this place existed. He walked these same streets. Fought a war. Raised a family. You erased him because his presence disrupted your version of perfection. He turned, voice steady now. You want cohesion? Try community. You want preservation? Start with memory. Silence. Then Denise stood. Then Angela. Then a woman Malik didn't even know, tears in her eyes. This isn't about the plaque, she said. This is about whose stories we think are worth remembering. Thomas, trembling slightly, stepped to the front. "I'd like to propose a motion," he said, voice thin but clear. "To formally recognize the Elijah Brown Memorial as a protected historical installation maintained indefinitely by the HOA." There was a pause. Then Malik added, "And one more thing, every new resident moving forward will receive a copy of Elijah's story with their welcome packet." Angela nodded. "Let's make history part of our foundation." The vote was called. The room lifted its hand. Unanimously. That night, Malik returned home, poured himself a glass of water, and sat down to write a reply to the violation letter. He stared at the page for a long time. Then he tore it in half. Because there are some battles you don't answer in ink. You answer with presence. With roots. With memory. 2 weeks later, the neighborhood held its first Stories of Bellwood event. A walking tour of local homes with plaques sharing former residents' stories. Immigrants, veterans, activists, caretakers. Malik led the tour. He stopped at his own front lawn and spoke softly. "This grass? It's not a battlefield anymore. It's a witness." Then he knelt and ran his fingers through it, whispering the same words he'd once heard from his grandfather. "A man doesn't just own land. He honors it." The HOA never sent another violation. Not because they changed, but because the people had. And Malik? He didn't need their silence anymore. He had something stronger. Legacy. So, let me ask you, have you ever been told to shrink yourself to fit into someone else's version of community? Have you been policed not for what you did, but for who you are? Have you stayed silent to keep the peace, knowing the cost was your own dignity? Because here's the truth. Every neighborhood has a Malik. And every Malik needs a moment to stand. Tell us, what would you do if your lawn became your battleground? Would you fight? Would you stay silent? Would you rewrite the rules? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Share this with someone who needs to read it. Because maybe, just maybe, the grass is greener when we stop cutting each other down.